Okay, I'm going to sit on this chair.
No. Sit.
No?
I want you to sit on this.
You
this
want
one.
the for me? Is that what you're saying? Oh, this chair.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's where I'm going to sit. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, here, just hang on. Can I start at any moment? Or?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay, and I'm going to call it from the beginning because in books you write preface sometimes.
Yeah.
So, okay, preface the book in the story. No, preface the book is the story of my father. Again, I messed it up. Preface. This book is the story of my father. Papa is an inspiration to me, comma, and to my brothers and my sister. My father came to the United States when he was 40 years old. It took a lot of courage for a man of his age to make that decision. Papa was a man who had the security of a job which he had held since the early age of 14 years old. Papa was a man who had his mother and all his brothers and sisters around him in the same city. Papa was a man who had cultivated strong ties with the church, his friends, and his neighbors. My papa was willing to leave the comfort of this security to venture into another country. Papa was willing to leave a beautiful city, Monterey, the place of his birth. Papa was willing to give up the beautiful valley and the majestic mountains of his native city to go to a city with no mountains or valleys. Papa was willing to leave his beloved Monterey and venture to a city by the sea. And that's what it's known, Corpus Christi City by the Sea. So Corpus Christi, Texas. Papa had never even been to the ocean. Moving his family to America was going to be the biggest change in his life, comma, in his wife's life and his children's life. My papa did not know any English language. Papa only knew that he wanted to find a better life for his wife and his 5 children. Papa was ready to risk it all in exchange for a bright future for his children and a more comfortable life for him and his wife. We are the children now, all grown up. We are the sons and daughters of an immigrant who longed for a better life for his children. Papa was a visionary. Papa believed in a dream. The dream came true in America. The children of this immigrant have become successful United States citizens. Papa has a son that has a bachelor's degree.
Sorry. I'll wake it up. The screen went to screensaver, so we're waking up the screen now.
You can put escape. Do you see it at the top?
Okay.
See if it fixes it.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so then I say, where do we go here? Okay, we are all his children now all grown up. We are the sons and daughters of an immigrant who longed for a better life for his children. Papa was a visionary. Papa believed in a dream. The dream came true in America. The children of this immigrant have become successful United States citizens. Papa has a son that has a bachelor's degree in philosophy, and that's Salvador. The next one is also his degree, a master's degree in engineering technology, comma, a master's degree in environmental management, and a doctorate in environmental sciences, comma, a son that is retired as a colonel in the Air Force and has a bachelor's degree in business and a master's degree in business administration. A son, he has a bachelor's degree in business and a master's degree in business administration, a son who has a bachelor's degree in geology and physics and owns his own oil research software company, a daughter who has a bachelor's degree in French and a master's degree in counseling, and a daughter who has a bachelor's degree in Spanish and French and a master's degree in library science. All of Papa's 5 children have attended various universities. All of Papa's children received their bachelor's degree from the University of Texas at Austin. One of his sons has a master's degree from Texas A&M University, and a doctorate from Texas Tech University. And that's the bottom line. Another son has a master's degree from the University of New Mexico.
Hmm.
A daughter has a master's degree from Corpus Christi University, and his other daughter has a master's degree from Columbia University in New York City. My papa, my papa's grandchildren have degrees in business, engineering, computer science, chemistry, technical writing, education, music, and medicine. Every one of papa's grandchildren graduated from college. The one that has a degree in medicine is Letty's son,
Oh,
Eric.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's called Papa Brought Us to America. Maria was only 16 when she met Carlos Castañeda, who was 30 years old. Maria was an exquisite young woman whose beauty was classic. Maria's figure came from uh, down. Maria's beautiful hair came down past her waistline. You know, that's how long her hair was. Maria's blue eyes were like two aquamarines, and her high cheekbones made Maria's eyes slightly slanted. Maria's nose was femininely tiny, and her lips were delicate and sensuous like the petals of a rose. The first time that Carlos saw Maria, he was helplessly enamored of her. Carlos was a viral man whose ancestors had come to Mexico City from Italy. Carlos thought that in 5 feet.
On
Carlos thought was in what is it?
all of Mexico.
Carlos was a 5 feet 10 inches tall man with curly brown hair. Carlos had a brown mustache, which gave him the look of a distinguished man. Adding to his good looks were his beautiful green eyes that were like two serene pools in a forest. Carlos and Maria dated for a few months. Maria had never met anyone like Carlos. Maria felt safe with Maria felt safe when she was with Carlos. Soon Maria surrendered to Carlos' desires and fell deeply in love with him. Carlos and Maria were married in June 1914. A son was born to them on December 12, 1915, whom they called Mario. Mario looked just like his father. Mario had light brown curly hair and beautiful green eyes. Carlos was very happy with his little son. Carlos and Mario developed a wonderful father-son relationship. When Mario was 8 years old, his father became ill with influenza and died that winter. Maria was left a young and beautiful widow with a small son to take care of. Maria's father, Patricio, asked her to move in with him so that he could protect both his daughter and his grandson. Papa Patricio had been the on-site groundskeeper for one of the richest men in Monterrey, Jose Calderon. So that guy was the big cajon in Monterrey at that time.
Mm.
So Mr. Calderon was the sole proprietor of the bodegas Almacenes Calderon for 30 years. So he owned what do you call where they stock all these products that they sell. So anyway, Mr. Calderon was the sole proprietor of the bodegas Almacenes Calderon for 30 years. These were large warehouses located near the biggest train station in Monterrey. That was scary. My brother and I were always running around those rails.
Wow.
It was in these enormous warehouses that the merchandise that the trains transported from many parts of Mexico was stored. Mr. Jose Calderon warehouses manager was Jose Bitters, a 30-year-old Patricio.
Okay. 30-year-old man.
Say, but Papa Patricio was the groundskeeper. Papa Patricio kept the warehouses grounds clean and opened the gates of the warehouses when the newly arrived merchandise had to be stored. Mr. Calderon had a modest house built next to these warehouses for Papa Patricio and his family to live in. Papa Patricio uh, worked for Mr. Calderon for many years. Papa Patricio's three sons had moved away and the families and had families of their own. Papa Patricio's only daughter, Consuelo, had married many years before, so she was like the firstborn, I guess. Consuelo had a brother-in-law named Marcos Rangel. Marcos Rangel enjoyed going to the baseball games at the Chapultepec Baseball Stadium, which was within walking distance from Papa Patricio's house. Maria had a close girlfriend named Rosita Gonzalez. Maria and Rosita were best friends, and they went everywhere together. Papa Patricio allowed Maria and Rosita to go together to the baseball games at the Chapultepec Baseball Stadium. One night, Papa Patricio gave Maria and her friend Rosita permission to go see the baseball game at the Cuauhtemoc Baseball Stadium. Papa Patricio had a daughter named Chelo Rangel. Chelo's brother-in-law, Marcos Rangel, enjoyed going to the baseball games there regularly. It was one of those baseball games that Marcos Rangel noticed Josefina in the crowd. Marcos was a dark, handsome 31-year-old man. When Marcos saw Maria sitting a few seats from the stadium seat, he was totally captivated by the flowing beauty of her golden hair and the sparkle of her aquamarine eyes. Marcos stopped Maria as she was walking out of the stadium when the baseball game was over. Maria was instantly attracted to Marcos. Marcos was daring enough to ask Maria if he could sit with her every time that she came to the baseball games. Trustingly, Maria agreed to meet Marcos in front of the stadium right before the game would start. Marcos and Maria and she became Marcos. Marcos and Maria met secretly every Friday night at the baseball games. Marcos, uh, anyway, Maria planned to tell Marcos that she was pregnant. Maria planned to meet Marcos at the baseball game and to tell him about the baby. When Maria told Marcos that she was carrying his baby, Marcos then told her that his company was about to transfer, he was being transferred to Mexico City and that he would never see him that she would never see him again. So he walked out on her pregnancy. Maria was heartbroken at the sound of Marcos' words. Maria was devastated at the thought of how Marcos had lied to her and had disgraced her just because she was a widow. Maria would never recover, which there's a typo there, from her heartache. Maria was planning to tell Marcos that she was pregnant with his child. Now Maria felt that it was of no use to him to know that she was carrying his baby. Marcos left the same day for Mexico City. And this is when my mom was born. On July the 9th, 1925, Maria gave birth to a beautiful baby daughter whom she named Josefina. Josefina grew into a beautiful little girl. At 6 years old, Josefina started school. Josefina loved going to school. Josefina was a kind and friendly little girl. Josefina's classmates wanted to be her best friend. Josefina enjoyed going to school and making friends. The years went by, and when Josefina was in the second grade, her mother had a stroke and grandfather Patricio decided to withdraw Josefina from elementary school. At an incredibly young age, Josefina had to learn to cook and to clean. Josefina was heartbroken. Josefina loved going to school and did not want to drop out as a second grade student. Josefina enjoyed school and her classmates very much. Josefina did well in all her classes. She excelled, especially in the arts. Josefina's handwriting, her crayon drawings, her pencil sketches were outstanding. The other children would ask her, Josefina, where did you buy your pencils and crayons? So that they could so that we could buy ours there. Maybe we can draw letters and color pictures as beautiful as yours. So where is it? As beautiful as yours if we would buy our pencils and crayons where you bought yours. Josefina was going to miss school and all her children. At the end of the week, Josefina I'm sorry, at the end of the week, grandfather Patricio took Josefina out of school. So Josefina took good care of her mother because she became very sick and invalid and did her chores without complaining. Josefina's brother Mario, Uncle Mario, right? He was elder, was now 16 years old. Mario was working full time in the Monterey Glassworks Company. The money that Mario made was needed for medical bills, medicine, and groceries for the family. Grandfather Patricio was now retired as a watchman of the railroad warehouse and was receiving a small pension. Of some help was the fact that Mr. Jose Calderon, the owner of the warehouse, had allowed Grandfather Patricio to remain living rent free at the house located next to the big train warehouses. Josefina continued to live with her brother Mario, her invalid mother, and her grandfather Patricio. Grandfather Patricio replaced the father that Josefina never got to know. Josefina called her grandfather Papa Patricio. 10 years continued, and soon Josefina turned 15 years old. Josefina was 5 feet 4 inches tall and had a great figure. Josefina's face was very beautiful. Josefina had a smooth olive complexion, and when she smiled with her heart shaped lips, she revealed a perfect set of pearly white teeth. Josefina's eyes were a dark shade of brown. Josefina's perfectly formed turned up nose complemented her beautiful profile. Framing the delicate beauty of that face was her dark brown, soft, and silky hair, which Josefina wore at shoulder length. In January of 1940, Mario met Maria Elena. It was love at first sight for both. Maria Elena was a green eyed beauty. Maria Elena had beautiful straight brown hair. Maria Elena 17-inch waistline would have made Scarlett O'Hara envious. Remember, she's known for a tiny. Do you know the story, Scarlett O'Hara? Anyway,
Yeah, I think
in
so.
December of 1940, Mario and Maria Elena married. They made a handsome couple. They were both practicing Catholics. The wedding was at Iglesia del Sagrado Corazon. When Mario and Maria Elena came back from their honeymoon in Mazatlan, they invited Josefina to go to the baseball game at the Cuauhtemoc Baseball Stadium, which is where my mom lived. Put on her favorite Josefina put on her favorite blue dress. Josefina combed her hair into a ponytail and tied a blue velvet ribbon around it. As Josefina, Mario, and Maria Elena watched the baseball game, a handsome man was watching Josefina from afar. The name of that handsome man was Rodolfo Garcia Uranga, my dad. Rodolfo and his favorite brother Rogelio, they were four boys in the family, had come to watch the baseball game. Rodolfo's hair was black, his skin was ivory white, and his mustache was auburn, like a redhead mustache. Rodolfo was 5 feet 10 inches tall. Rodolfo's slender body gave him an elegant and distinguished look. Rodolfo's forehead was wide, and his bushy dark eyebrows and large brown eyes made a stunning contrast against his ivory skin. Rodolfo's long, narrow, and thin nose gave him a classical Greek profile. Rodolfo's chin was wide and strong, showing him to be a man of integrity and great courage. The moment when Rodolfo caught a glimpse of the beautiful profile of the young girl wearing the blue velvet ribbon in her hair, he was totally captivated by her beauty. Josefina felt that someone was looking at her. Josefina turned her face to the handsome man that was looking back at her. Josefina also felt an instant attraction for him. Rodolfo never turned to his brother Rogelio. Rodolfo then turned to his brother Rogelio. There were four boys in the family, and said, "See that girl wearing the blue velvet ribbon in her hair? She will become my wife someday." When the baseball game was over, Rodolfo and Rogelio, their brothers, right? Uh, when the baseball game was over, Rodolfo asked Rogelio to wait for him while he went over to introduce himself to the girl with the blue dress and the blue ribbon, velvet ribbon. Rodolfo also wanted to speak with the two people that Josefina was with. Rodolfo approached the group and introduced himself to Mario, Maria Elena, and Josefina. After Rodolfo realized that Mario was Josefina's brother, he asked his permission to ask Josefina out on a date. Mario could tell that Rodolfo was a man of integrity and told him to come by and meet grandfather Patricio, because he raised my mom, my grandmother, and see if he could date Josefina. After Mario gave Rodolfo the address, Rodolfo was bold enough to ask if he could come on Sunday afternoon. Mario agreed. Josefina smiled at Rodolfo and said that she was looking forward to seeing him on Sunday. Soon Rodolfo and Josefina started going on dates. The friendships grew stronger, and each time that they were together, Rodolfo explained to Josefina that he wanted to date her for about 2 years. Rodolfo needed this time to help his widowed mother, which was named after her, Maria, brothers and sisters to become independent. So Josefina was incredibly happy with Rodolfo. Josefina was still very young and was willing to stand by Rodolfo on his request. As they spent time together, Josefina found out about Rodolfo's past. Rodolfo's ancestors were the first Protestants in Monterrey, Mexico. An agent from the American Bible Society named James Hickey came to Mexico in 1860. A young Englishman bookkeeper, Thomas Westrup, invited Mr. Hickey to come to Monterrey. Mr. Hickey was in Matamoros, Mexico at that time. This is a English speaking person. Mr. Hickey went to Monterrey in November 1862. On January 30th, 1864, Mr. Hickey baptized Thomas Westrup. Mr. Hickey, Mr. Hickey also baptized two other young men who were in their mid 20s. These two brothers, Arcadio and Jose M. Uranga, were shoemakers for generations back. Their ancestors had come from the Ukraine on on of the 15 one of the 15 republics in the Soviet Union. The Urangas had fled from the Ukraine because they were persecuted for their Christian belief. Eventually, the Urangas went to England. Then they eventually came to the New World and settled in Monterrey, Mexico. The Urangas set up their business. Some were undertakers, they would bury you. Some were shoemakers. Arcadio Uranga and Jose M. Uranga were believed to be the first Baptist converts in Mexico. Their baptism took place in a stream near the edge of Monterrey. On that day, Mr. Hickey, Thomas Westrup, Arcadio Uranga, and Jose M. Uranga went to Hickey's home and organized the Primera Iglesia Bautista de Monterrey. They started the church. The first five members were Jose M. Uranga, Arcadio Uranga, Tomas Westrup, and Mr. and Mrs. James Hickey. Rodolfo's father, Leopoldo Garcia, met his wife, Virginia Uranga, at the Primera Iglesia de Monterrey. Leopoldo was a strong and well-built man. Leopoldo was 5 feet 10 inches tall, or 5 feet 8 inches tall. Leopoldo's complexion was dark. Leopoldo's hair was black and straight. Leopoldo's eyes were a very dark shade of brown. When Leopoldo smiled, he revealed a set of perfect teeth so white that they made a striking contrast with his dark olive complexion. Leopoldo came from a family with Aztec background. Virginia was the eldest daughter, the first daughter, born to Jose M. Uranga. Virginia had two younger sisters, Rebecca and Ana. Virginia's only brother was Alfredo, which eventually my brother was called after him. Alfredo Uranga had a very thriving shoemaker business. Mr. Uranga's shoe shop was located in the center of Monterrey. Mr. Uranga had three men working for him. He was always busy. He had good business. When Leopoldo turned 15, he began working at the Fundidora de Acero de Monterrey, a large steel refinery. Leopoldo was a blue collar worker. Leopoldo worked on the main floor of the steel refinery. Leopoldo was hired to load iron ore, coke, and limestone into the top of the blaze furnace. That's pretty hut where he was working.
Wow.
Leopoldo's father and grandfather had both been leaders at the blaze furnace. Loaders, they were loaders also. At a young age, his father took Leopoldo to the steel refinery and explained to him how steel was made. Leopoldo's father explained to him that as early as 4000 before Christ, people used iron from meteorites to make ornaments, weapons, tools, and utensils. However, no one recorded when people first made iron from iron ore. This process developed independently in many parts of the world. In Monterrey, miners went underground to remove iron ore from the inside of the mountain called Sierra Madre, the mother, whatever hill. No, anyway, so Sierra Madre, the men would go inside the mountain by drilling tunnels. The iron was then brought to the Fundidora de Acero de Monterrey. There were three chief methods for making steel from iron ore. These methods were the oxygen process, the electric furnace process, and the open hearth process. The Fundidora de Acero de Monterrey used the open hearth process. The open hearth process got its name because the hearth of the furnace is open directly to the flames that melt the ore. This was an extremely hot and dangerous place to work. The process required strong and brave men to continually load the coal needed in the furnace to melt the ore.
Okay, last page. We'll just finish this one.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, one more. Yeah.
Okay, Leopoldo had been noticing Virginia more and more each Sunday at school because they were Baptist. Virginia was now 15 years old. Virginia was 5 feet 6 inches tall. Virginia's black hair was a striking Virginia's black hair was a striking contrast with her alabaster skin. Virginia's eyes were a beautiful dark brown and were framed by thick eyelashes and a set of full and beautifully shaped eyebrows. Virginia was the eldest, like the firstborn of the three sisters. Anna was a slightly built girl and had just turned 13. Rebecca, although she was only 11, was as tall as her sister Anna. All the three sisters always dressed impeccably for church. Virginia's mother, Esther, was an accomplished seamstress. Esther had inspired her three daughters to create and sew their own dresses. When the girls were little, Esther enjoyed sewing clothes for them. As the girls grew, they developed their sewing skills and were soon designing their own dresses. Virginia had been designing and sewing her dresses for some time. Eventually, Virginia became interested in millinery, so she started learning how to make hats for women. Virginia's Aunt Rose owned and operated millinery shop, so her aunt, sold hats. Every month, Virginia would come to Aunt Rose's shop to design and create a hat to go with her latest dresses. Virginia's hats were Virginia's hats were always the prettiest of all the hats worn by the young girls on Sunday morning at church. Virginia's dresses were made of the finest silk and velvet. The color of the veils of her hats coordinated with the dress that Virginia was wearing. Here's where she meets her future husband. Leopoldo always felt, oh, that's her father. Anyway, Leopoldo always felt very proud to be able to sit next to Virginia. So, yeah, that's where he falls in love on Sunday school and during the worship service. Virginia's parents eventually agreed that Leopoldo could start escorting Virginia to their home after the church service. Leopoldo had waited patiently for their decision. The week seemed too long, Sunday to Sunday, so Leopoldo asked the Urangas if he could visit Virginia one day during the week. Virginia's father agreed. Leopoldo enjoyed coming to see Virginia in the early evening after the supper hour. Leopoldo and Virginia took a stroll down the street to the city square. Leopoldo and Virginia like to sit on the park bench and talk about their dreams for their future together. On some occasion, Leopoldo and Virginia went to their parents' backyard and sat with uh, to the parents' backyard and sat on a swing and enjoyed gazing at the garden flowers. There were also some bird cages with wonderful singing birds. Virginia's mother was fond of birds and kept several birds in cages in her garden. Leopoldo and Virginia enjoyed the beautiful fragrance of the flowers and the beautiful bird songs. They sat by the garden until the stars came out and it was time for Leopoldo to go home. During the week that Leopoldo was too busy to come see Virginia, he would send her by messenger a postcard or a letter in which he declared how much he loved her and missed her. Following are the words in the postcard that Leopoldo said to Virginia: "My most beloved one, you are always on my mind. I hope that when you receive this postcard, you and your parents will be in good health. My Virginia, I hope that my words will remind you of how much I love you and how faithful I am to you. Sweetheart, I have been thinking about going to your home, but it has been impossible. I have had to work a lot, or I have worked a lot. I hope to see you tomorrow, God willing. Receive this heart of this faithful man who loves you dearly, my Virginia. Give my regards to your parents."
Okay, wow, you read a lot, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna pause there. Thank you.
yeah.
And this and that. Okay.
No, that's what I'm